Hello. It's been a while since I've been back, and I apologize for that. I will try and be better in the future a little bit and do more of these if I don't bounce it around too much. I want to introduce you to a friend of mine. His name is Belgarath. I'll tell you how Belgarath came to be. When Kamari and I moved back to uh, Grand Junction from working at Rick's College, our children were young. Russell was in high school. Theo was in grade school, and we wanted to do something uh, fun. We had the Russell and his friends in Idaho had on Halloween had made our house into a haunted house, and they took about 6 weeks in front of the house, in front of the Halloween to do this, and they had strobe lights and all kinds of scary things, and we moved back to Grand Junction, and they wanted to do it there. And so when we built our house, we built it in a way that would lend itself to being a haunted house. You could actually come in the front door. You could go through almost every room in the house and not cross over your trail. We even had a staircase going down to the basement that the walls were painted like it looked like it was a rock wall. And you went down the stairs and went through the laundry room, and we had put over the washer and dryer. We had a space in between. We'd put a sheet of plywood and a tarp, and we had a person in underneath that, and there was a body laying up on top, not a real body, and we had a head that was not a part of the thing, but they would say, "Give me back my head." The person underneath the cupboard and whatnot, and it was kind of spooky. And we had some other things that were not gross. We had a doctor in there, and his name was Del Faust, and he had a syringe that was about a foot long that had looked like blood in it. It wasn't, but he had his hair all spiked and so anyway, this is the first year, and we had a girl come down the stairs, and she turned into the laundry room and saw this, and she froze. She freaked out. And we stopped everything, turned all the lights on, and took her outside and got her out of the situation, but she was really traumatized. And we decided that we were never going to do that again. That and so they were going to have a kind of a spook house. And Kamari told them, says, "I'm not going to let you destroy my house for 6 weeks." And so she told him that you can do whatever you want to in the barn. Well, the barn wasn't situated right. So we said, okay, we will do a trail through the forest, and we'll call it the Enchanted Forest. And the first half of the trail was scary things, and Belgarath was one of the characters in our uh, Enchanted Forest. He could change shapes. He could change from a person to a wolf, and came from a story that we had read. The Belgarath series is is where we had shaped that. Well, the first year we did this, Kamari came up with a story of that the king of the land had a daughter, a princess, and she had been captured by the Wicked Witch, and she was out in the forest somewhere, Wicked Witch, and so the storyline was that, and Kamari would tell the story to groups of about 5 or 6 at a time. That this was at night, and so they all had to have flashlights. And she told the story of the princess being kidnapped, and that they were to be sent on a hunt to find and rescue the princess. And she gave them a little magic orb. Some of you may have played Pente, a bit of colored rock, like the colored rocks they put flowers in. It's what we used, and had different kinds of colors, but we picked out of each group, you picked out 2 young people, little ones, and you gave one of them this orb, and that was a magic orb. it would ward off evil. And so if they were confronted with anything that was scary or bad in the forest, they could hold out their hand with this orb in it and say, I have an orb. And it, the bad would go away. And we had another one named the Searcher, and he had a flashlight. Well, we had used bicycle or road uh, signs, not signs, but reflectors that we had spaced all through the forest. And you could, when you got to one, you could shine the light around and see the next one, and that told you where the trail was. And you followed those floating orbs through the forest to get to the Wicked Witch's lair. Well, the first half was scary. We even had a young man built a dragon. I mean, his head was 3 feet tall, and the head would turn side to side, and we had it fixed up so he would blow flames out of his mouth. Quite a production. We had as high as 65 actors in the wood acting various parts. We had a gypsy camp that would try to steal their orb or trade them out of their orb. And so all kinds of things that they had. Well, Belgrath was out in the forest. And when had first done this, these are all of the things in the forest were animals, and we had a cougar. We had cougar is a mountain lion. We had fiery flying serpents, and we had this big dragon we built, and all kinds of things going on that they would go through and see on their way. Uh, and Kamari would paint these, and we stored them every year. We had a unicorn uh, that was painted and had a little baby. But after a year or two, we even had a live unicorn, had a horn on its head, and we had a little white Shetland pony that we used. We put the horn on it and glittered her up and had her tied out in the woods, and we had a person behind her that would speak as the unicorn. And so it was quite a thing when we first got it all put together, and we had fairies that or little people that lived in apartment houses that were on the side of some great big cottonwood trees. And anyway, it was a production. It was about the trail itself was about 5/8 of a mile long, and it went up one side of the creek and back down the other side. We had some troll guarded bridges that they had to make their way across. We had sword fights out there, and we'll talk about some of those. Russell used to do fencing, and so we had the gear to do sword fighting, and some stories with that will come a little later. Um, anyway, so we would put this on, and one of the fun things that happened is we had a hayfield out in front of the barn that we would park the cars on. The last night that we did the Enchanted Forest, we did it for 18 years, every year. The last night we did it, we had 2,500 people coming through, and the night before that, we had over 2,000 people coming through. We didn't charge any entry fee. We suggested that they might want to bring a dessert of some kind to share with others, and because they would start in our barn and go out and go around the trail and come back to where they saved the princess, and she would escort them back to the barn. Uh, and I'll tell you that little story of that because it was kind of special. We'd gone in, and literally on some of this trail, I had laid down on my back and slid in under the brush with my chainsaw to cut out the trail through the brush and some of them Russian olives. And where we put the princess, we had uh, carved out of the brush and trees, a nice space where we had put a bed that had silk covers on it. And we had the princess in laying on the bed. She's unconscious, and she has 3 or 4 ladies in waiting around her. But the Wicked Witch had gone off, and so when they got there with her orb, they were to put it in the princess's hand, and she would wake up and thank them for saving her and go to the barn. Well, the first year we did it, we didn't have the princess. We just had the story. And some of these little children, 5 and 6 years old, really got upset when they got all the way around and there wasn't a princess to save because they had spent 30 minutes or 45 minutes going on the trail, confronting all of these things that confronted them out in the forest and didn't have a princess. So the next year we had to have a princess and we cut this spot out and put the bed in there. And coming into the area, there was a trail going through this brush and it really was. And over the top of it, I had put in electric lights, that Christmas tree lights that were red going in, and they went into where the princess was. And when they put the orb in her hand, we had pulled some electric cords out there, and one of the ladies in waiting would flip a switch. The red lights went out, and it was covered in white, covered in clear and white light, so that it really glowed up and to get the princess and go back to the barn and have the dessert that others had provided. One of the fun things that happened once in there, and we're going to have 3 or 4 stories about the Enchanted Forest, but we had this line of people waiting to go through, and I was walking out the line to make sure that things were okay. And I heard one person turn to another, and he says, this is how the Mormons celebrate Halloween. They have an enchanted forest. They don't have the spooky goblins. That pleased me actually, and it was kind of fun. But we'll give you a further update on that a little bit later. Have a wonderful day.